Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Finally Feel Free event. Today, I have such a special guest, Emily Evans Russell. She's a mindset and energy coach. She's trained in rapid resolution therapy, yoga, Ayurveda, women's health, and has been a facilitator of Access Consciousness for 10 years. Emily teaches people how to enhance their intuition so that they can easily manifest the relationships, wealth, and life of their dreams. She's a single mother of two, a thriving six-figure entrepreneur, and she holds a master's degree in teaching from National Louis University in Chicago. Explore more with Emily with all the links we'll put down below at emilyevansrussell.com. But for now, Emily, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm amazed with how much you can keep in your head. That's an impressive introduction. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess it comes with practice.
Yes, yes. Well, you're very good at it. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you for being here. And today we are going to be talking about such an important conversation that really is so crucial, but isn't talked about enough. And that's how to refresh and reset your relationships daily. So, Emily, we all have moments where things are a little bit, like difficult or there's conflict. And how do we set our relationships daily when, things like that is going on?
Yeah, it's a great question, right? Because like you said, we have relationships of all sorts. We have our family, we have friends, we have maybe a spouse or partner, we have work relationships. And every day, if we come to the table not refreshing or resetting what our relationship is, meaning coming in to really create something new each day, then what happens is we bring all the baggage from before into the day. And I think a lot of us can relate to having some sort of scorecard of like, well, this happened with this person and this happened with this person and my kid did this or this. And that does not generate a thriving relationship in any area of our lives. And so what I like to talk about is, okay, so when you wake up in the morning, and especially if you have like what you mentioned, any turmoil or kind of stress or, like with somebody, or just your relationship isn't feeling as alive and creative as it could be, a really simple tool is to destroy and uncreate your relationship with that person each day.
Wow. Okay.
And I know it's not like you're like, wait, why, why would I want to destroy a relationship? But energetically, you cannot destroy or uncreate anything that's not true for you as a being, like as the infinite soul that we are. Um, you can't get rid of something that is true for you. What you can get rid of are limitations, limiting beliefs, points of view, grudges you've held on to for no reason. And so with that, it's like you say, okay, everything my relationship is with this person, I destroy and uncreate it. And invite in then, okay, if I could create anything with this person, what would it be? Like what creationship could we have? Which puts you in the space of creation with them rather than bringing in all this like this old stuff. It's like, okay, here we are today, let's be present with who we are and add in a new energy so that we can actually move forward and have that thriving energy that we all love and are often like, where did that go?
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And it's such a new way to look at it. But I know people might be thinking, because, people have been, and just like social conditioning for them to not feel like they're brushing things under the carpet, because it can be super easy for some people to just do this because they just kind of maybe they don't want to engage with conflict, or they're just naturally very positive people or whatever it is, and they could just start again each day and it could be from a different kind of place. So how do you manage facing issues that are important but also bringing this thriving energy to relationships?
I love that question, because this is not about, you have brought up something very important, is which is not to just put things to the side and not address the issues that are there. Like if we also want our relationships to thrive, we have to be willing to come to the table with what I call like vulnerability, meaning like I'm not going to have a wall up or be trying to protect myself or prove myself right. Like, can we just have a conversation about what's going on here? And that is when we have allowance for the other person and for ourselves, but that does not mean being a doormat. Like it doesn't mean like, okay, you get to like roll over me one day and we have a fight and now I'm just supposed to go, let's create something new today. Like it's not that. It's okay, you know, and what I've seen is the things we don't want to say in a relationship are the things that we most need to say or require to say to change something. So I know if I have something in my world where I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to talk about with this or address it with the person, I'm like, okay, that's where I know that if I'm willing to say, hey, can we talk and not about making the other person wrong? And I think that's so, or feeling like we are wrong, that like that just like the judgment we build up with someone else, and instead being like, here's how this is for me, and then go to a question, what is it like for you, and get information rather than you didn't do this or this is what. It's just like, hey, this is what I experienced. We all have different points of view. Like you could take the same experience and you and I we could go out on an adventure and you would see it one way and I would have experienced it completely different, which is beautiful because we're all different. And it can cause conflict in relationships because you're like, but wait, this is how I see it. Why are you seeing it this way? And rather we ask questions of, what is that like for you? What did you experience? And really listen from presence with the other person. You're just going to get more information about the other person, where they're coming from, and hopefully also information and a look inward as well when you do that, when you really come to the table to have a conversation. So allowance isn't saying, oh, I need to just let everything go and brush it under the rug. It's like being willing to have the courage to also have conversations, the difficult ones, but not from the place we've been doing it out of like autopilot. Like, oh, I know if I bring this up, we're going to get in this fight again. Or it's like one of my favorite questions. And this is one of the tools of access consciousness that I've been facilitating for many years. And this seems very simple, but it's asking, what else is possible? What's possible here? And not from trying to figure it out, but it's such a beautiful question, right? Just like, wow, this has been difficult, or we fight about this, or what else is possible? And you kind of, without having to have your mind figure that out, allow the universe to show you possibilities that you, with your mind and the things we all bring to the table in relationship, maybe can't see. It asks for this like bigger perspective of, okay, what else is possible here that I may have never considered, that we have never considered. And when we ask questions, you know, our subconscious mind is designed to seek out answers to questions. So like, let's use that to our advantage. So when you ask a question, your subconscious, which is all this energy going on all the time, you start to use it to your advantage, and it goes, oh, what else is possible? Okay. And you get to be in communion with the universe and all of the possibilities that are there that you might not see, because we all get in our habits, you know, and we have our lenses on that we see the world. When you ask a question, it opens it up, and there's not like an answer to what else is possible, but there's awarenesses and there's possibilities, and they will start to flow in because you've asked. And it's one of the magical ways the universe works. And you don't have to be in it and feel like you're alone in the stressful relationship, or you don't know how to get through. Like that's one way to really ask for whatever you call that higher power, you know, God, universe, source, whatever that is, but something bigger. So you see an aerial view of what's going on rather than this like, I feel stuck, you know?
And I just love that, because it seems, even when you were talking about when you both go out and you've seen, because truth is not like, truth is multi-dimensional. Like everybody has their own truth and no one is right or wrong. And when we try and like, merge our truths, that's when the problem is. But I love how, I got like a sense of curiosity and a sense of like discovering, even in long-term relationships, like you could be with that person for years, but when you do like a new experience and you ask them that question, you're like kind of discovering them all over again, and it's like this unfolding. So I thought that was beautiful. And then when you talked about being what's like asking like what's possible here, and that was actually my kind of inspiration for even doing an event like this, and like bringing so many different people together and so many different perspectives, because possibility, like there's a different possibility for everyone, and like even just expanding your awareness and just like learning new ways of how people think or the advice, it just, even if it's not for you, it just gets you in that mode of just like feeling like a solution will present itself. So absolutely love that. Really, really landed with me. So you talk about the subconscious mind and how like, because I think when people think about the subconscious mind, it's more about like programming it and just kind of doing all of that stuff. But you're actually talking about it in a way that it can, like taking advantage of it and giving you answers and everything. So could you tell us like a little bit more about that kind of power of what it can do?
Yeah, it's our subconscious, unconscious, whatever you want to call it, right? When we study the brain, what we're aware of is this, our conscious world is quite small to everything going on. It's like a glacier, right? And you see this much on top, and there's all this beneath. And there is a lot of programming and conditioning, right, in that part of us. And it's, what if we could use that to our advantage and not constantly have to be fighting with it and feel like, oh, my mind, can we have limiting thoughts? Does the mind limit us? Can the programming limit us? Yeah. And it does. But if you're aware of it and you can use what goes on in the mind to our advantage, we can really change something. Like there's the part of your brain, it's called the RAS, like the reticular activating system. Its job is to filter, sort and delete certain information, right? So we all know, if you have have you ever gotten a new car and then all of a sudden that's the car you see everywhere, or you learn a new word and then you see the word everywhere? Well, it's not that all of a sudden there's more cars or that word shows up more often. Your brain, literally, you told it was important, and now it's filtering to show you different things. Like, okay, so if it's going to do that, that's part of the function. Would I like to filter it towards limiting beliefs or the judgments I have of this relationship or this person? Or would I like to go, okay, if I dissolve my, like the judgments we build up with people in relationship, right? Oh, they're this way, or I act this way when I'm this person, or this is one of our difficulties. If instead gratitude dissolves judgment, like they cannot coexist. And so if I instead look from a place of gratitude and ask a question of, okay, well, what else might be possible with this person, and explore that, your subconscious is going to look for other possibilities rather than trying to match the judgments that you already have, which are just going to keep you stuck in that pattern, right? So it's like, okay, let's use this powerful part of the brain, which basically doesn't speak the same language as our conscious mind. It's like we have primitive brain and then we have our evolved, like they don't speak the same language. And there's ways you can use and talk to that part of the brain to bring it like on board with, this is the life I'd like to manifest and have. These are the relationships I would like to thrive. And I found that when you bring it on board, it's a lot more creative than going, why is my mind doing that? It's like, it's right. It's programmed that way. So let's try to use it in a way that works for us.
Yeah, that's so important. And especially when we're talking about refreshing and resetting relationships and, opening up that possibility. Yeah, I completely get that. So what other ways can we like refresh and reset relationships daily? Because even that question was just so powerful. But do you have like any other ways as well?
About a bazillion questions we could because
Yeah.
there's so many. And I think
Mm.
that's the key, is always when we come to a conclusion that
Mm.
something is always going to be this way. Another question that I love to ask is, how does it get any better than this?
Mm.
Super simple, but you know how often, even in our language, when something really great happens, it's like, oh man, it doesn't get any better than this.
Yeah.
Well, we just capped like the infinite possibilities there. So that
Mm.
question is for when things are difficult. Like, okay, how does it get any better than this? Again, you're asking the universe, and like, okay, and what else is possible? How does it get an even better, right? When things are great, also, oh my gosh, how does it get even better than this? And it's
Yeah.
always asking to
Love that.
raise your basically level of receiving
Mm.
of what is out there.
Mm.
um Instead of, when we don't ask a question, it's very similar to having a hallway with one door at the end. And if we are just, things are been the way they are, we're going to that doorway and we think that's what's going to happen, and that's a conclusion. When we
Mm.
ask questions, all of these doors along the hallway like sort of show up, and it's like, oh, there's this possibility and this perspective and this way to look at it. I mean, just
Mm.
like you mentioned, creating this summit and talking to different people,
Mm.
it's so vital, because one of the most important gifts we can give in this world is a different perspective. And not everything's going to work for everybody. Of course not. We're different. Like you said, there's not one truth that everyone's like, this is for everybody. It's
Mm.
what works for you. And in
Mm.
relationships of all sorts, really discovering, one of my favorite questions to ask is, what is true for me that I have not yet discovered?
Wow.
Which I had that on a sticky note, and for the last year I've been really asking it, and it's been so beautiful to see. Here I am in my mid 40s and going real, and I've spent many years on this, really looking inward and so excited about life and possibilities and what else is there to find and what else is out there, and to ask, what haven't I even discovered yet, was
Mm.
also a gift to see there's so much more out there. And in a relationship, if there is not one truth that you both have to agree upon, but what is true for you and what is true for me? And I want to honor that. And I want to support you and empower you to have, you know, a life that you love. You don't have to match each other. We don't have to agree on everything. But
Mm.
if we empower each other to go, that is so cool, seeing you have what is true for you, it
Mm.
ends up contributing to everybody. It's the opposite of what we hear. That is not a selfish question. It's when you are in your, whatever you want to call it, in your vibe, in alignment, doing like really hear what, like living what is true for you, everyone around you benefits, and the relationships around you thrive because they're inspired to go, okay, you mean I can actually explore what works for me and we can still come together at the table and like really create together. So
Mm.
that's what I would like to see more in the world in all of our relationships.
Mm. And even that question, how does it get any better than this? Like, I imagine in long-term relationships, sometimes when it feels a little bit like things are just going in the same way, but just like even asking that question and like being present with that and just wondering like, oh, how can I open up some new possibilities with this? Or how can we make this even better? Rather than going on the flip side and being like, is this, like you say, like so much of our language is like, oh, like this is it, we've hit that plateau or whatever. And this is like the 7-year itch, whatever, like all these things. So like these questions almost remind me of kind of like affirmations in a way. Like if you just keep repeating them in your mind and then waiting for the universe or source or just like the world around you to just kind of present stuff. That's what it
Yeah.
reminds. Yeah.
And I love it because they're slightly different. An affirmation, again, if our subconscious,
Hmm.
if we are saying, I am, wealthy, and our subconscious goes, no, you're not. It almost like
Yeah.
rejects it rather
Yeah.
than receiving it. But a question is is what our minds are designed to seek out. So it's like, okay, what would it take to have thriving relationships? What would it take is a great like way to turn anything into a question of something that you'd like to see show up. Well, wonder what would it take, and what would I have to be, like what energy would I have to be, see
Hmm.
that show up, to actualize, to manifest in the world. um And then it really is kind of showing up in your relationships and being willing to follow those whispers of intuition, of awareness, of when something feels not right or heavy and it's getting to this place.
Mm.
That's rather than going to, oh my gosh, another problem or another, that's a sign. I look at those as, okay, that is telling me there's something where we're not in alignment here. If something is getting twisted, there's something else possible. So now
Mm.
let's have that vulnerable conversation. Let's ask questions.
Mm.
It does take courage, and it's relationships require presence and an effort. They're not just like you said, you don't get to, there's not 7-year itch, for no reason. It's if you go into autopilot and don't refresh it, it's quite easy to just go, this is boring, or this isn't what I'd like it to be. It's like, well, let's show up and then create it. And the way we do that is being present, asking questions, not coming to conclusion about our partner, being willing to have each day start new. And then we start to really have something different show up. And with questions, when you said like affirmations, they remind me of also the way kids, sort of, they
Yeah.
don't ask questions when they're little still. It's not about getting something right. It's like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do today? Or like, what is possible? And we so are trained out of that as we get older, with school and trying to get things right and having all the stuff on our plate and trying to be the perfect partner and then the perfect person at work and the perfect mom. And boy, is that exhausting. And
Mm.
it's not sustainable. And instead, when we allow ourselves to have that curiosity and wonder that we all come in with as kids, and really go, okay, there's something here. There must be something else possible. If we feel stuck, let's look at it. And sometimes, relationships require change and they might not be moving forward, but with business, kids, family, like we've got to have tools to thrive, because they're people that we're going to have in our lives, and we'd like to,
Mm. Yeah, definitely. And I think the world is kind of a little bit split, which I've found in the sense of when it comes to relationships. I think half of the world, or I don't know exactly the percentage, but let's just say half of the world is kind of like it's so possible to have this thriving, amazing, beautiful relationship that's ever changing, ever growing, and all of these things. And then I think there's also another narrative, which is like these are the rules of relationships, like long-term relationships. These are the emotions you always go through. Like it's part of marriage, it's part of it. You just got to go through it. So there's this kind of like, push-pull energy. Like one side is like, this is just how it is. And the other side is like, no, there's so much possibility. So what would you say about that?
Oh, I love that. I would say I am very much the power of our points of view
Hmm.
create our reality.
Hmm.
So what you see showing up, if you have, this is just the way it is. These are the
Hmm.
phases of marriage. These are the phases of the phases of grief. If you
Yeah.
have that point of view,
Hmm.
your reality that you experience here it's literally like a 3D printer, the 3D
Hmm.
printers. What we experience is a 3D printout of our points of view. So a lot of us think it's the other way around. Well, no, this is showing up in my life. So of course, then I have the opinion or the perspective that this is what is. But
Hmm.
it's actually reverse. When
Hmm.
we have that point of view,
Hmm.
then we see it in our lives. And if we can go, wait a second, there must be some point of view or perspective I have that's going, oh, that's just the way relationships are. And
Hmm.
the power in that is we can change a perspective and point of view. And especially once we're aware of it, if you look at the conditioning and we get from family, of the relationships we see, that becomes our norm and
Hmm.
what we're around. And if we start to just go, oh, that's what, a married couple is like, because that's what my parents were like, or this is what then happens when people get divorced. And it's normal, right, for our brains and to go, okay, this X, Y, and Z is what happens. But that's just a point of view that you've now kind of been entrained to, with where we grow up and what we're around and the culture we're in. but all of it is changeable. So if there's something in your life that's showing up in like the 3D printout, you're like, wait a second, this isn't working for me. Then
Mm.
let's go back and look at what might be the belief I have
Mm.
that's causing this to show up. And from the power of, okay, that's one way to look at this. Is there an example? Like, I love like kind of poking holes in limiting beliefs. Okay, so if I think this is what has to happen in a relationship after 10 years, doesn't need to, get stale or get boring. And then I go, wait, is there an example in the world where that's not true?
Mm.
And there, you often will find one, if not in your immediate group, like somewhere in the world. And it's like, okay, then that doesn't have to be what is. There's actually all different possibilities. And it's sort of letting your brain know too, I know we've thought one way, but
Mm.
me, the infinite being, has all of these possibilities. And so let's actually work together to create something different.
Yeah, and that's actually how you change the world as well, it's not even just on like a personal level, just a collective level, because if
Yeah.
more we start shifting these beliefs and start creating our own, reality and all of this, and then other people see it's possible, and then before you know it, we've created a whole wave of just collective transformation. So
Yeah.
that is super important. Emily, thank you so much for this conversation. Like, so much of it has landed with me, and just the way you've these questions, like, oh my God, I'm gonna literally write them around my home and like just ask these questions. And can you just tell us about this free gift that you're offering to everybody as well?
Yeah. So if I have a free gift, which is 6 videos, it was going to be 5, and then I had to do it, but they're the little bonus one. They're very short. They're about 5 minutes with different tools for resetting and refreshing your relationships. So I mentioned the one we talked about, the destroying and uncreating your relationship, and I go into a bit more detail. And then there's other ones with PDFs too that have the little tools and questions. So if you like that, you can have it written out for you. And I hope it contributes so that really you can walk away with having some notes, watch a 5-minute video and go, okay, I'm going to take this and play with it with my partner, with my child, with my workmate, and see what changes. It really is fundamentally about like having different perspectives and tools to play with and see what changes for you. And I hope it's a contribution to greater.
Yeah, and we'll put all the links down for that below, and you can be part of Emily's community as well, and just kind of stay on course with her and all the content she releases just to support you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. It's been wonderful.
Of course. Hello, Soul Family. I really hope this interview helped you to finally feel free. Remember, it's not too late to be part of the VIP Sacred Circle, and at 99% off, I'm super excited to invite you to lifetime access to all the interviews and the complete event schedule so you can customize your viewing experience. You get an exclusive all-access gift pass, which means you can dive straight into the virtual goodie bag of gifts right now. You get a private one-to-one future projection session with me, where together we will craft and connect with your highest timeline 5D quantum future self. You also get a transformative month in the Sacred Soul Experience Mastermind, where we break through constraints of time and take leaps in health, love, wealth, and spiritual alignment. You receive laser coaching for your questions and create breakthroughs in your personal journey. This offering is here for you for just $99, and my intention is to support you wholeheartedly on your journey towards inner freedom, conscious love, and celestial connection. Act quick. This is a time-sensitive offer and will be updated after a certain date. So much love.